Hey everybody, welcome back to Imagine Better. This is Mark Powers, and today I have my good friend Davin Salvagno. Did I pronounce that right? No?
You're good.
You're close enough?
Do it again?
Salvagno.
Salvagno. There you go.
There you go. I've been pronouncing your last name wrong forever.
Okay.
So we're here in the Imagine Better Studios, episode 9. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you. Awesome, brother. It's great to see you.
Great to be here. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
I love what you've done with the space. It's been great just watching your journey over the last few years and your resilience and your continued pursuit to be more positive and make a difference. It's inspiring.
I am trying. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've met you a few years ago when you were in Mount Clemens, and I mean, wow. The Purpose Summit has exploded, and it seems like it's getting more and more steam each year.
Yeah, it's been so amazing to watch the journey of that. And what I love about it is most people think about exploding as in, becoming bigger and better.
Right.
And what's interesting is, the attendee count, I guess you could say, of the summit has been consistent year after year, but what's exploded is the impact. The collaborations that have been birthed out of it, friendships that have been forged, relationships that have been formed, the locations that it's gone to, and it's just really cool to see the ripple effect that comes out of that every year. It's just grateful to be a part of it.
Ah, that's brilliant. I love it. Tell us, a little bit about, obviously a lot of people, especially in Metro Detroit, know who you are, but for those that might find this on our YouTube channel that don't know, who you are and what you're really about. Today I wanted to talk more about, the whole purpose. And you talk about bringing people together from in the workplace and how that transitions into their personal lives at home and making them a better version of themselves, not only in the workplace, but again, a better father or a better significant other or whomever, whatever, in their private life. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's get down into the topic.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. I'm just a regular person like everyone else. I put my pants, or in this case, shorts on, one leg at a time. I'm going for the more casual look nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like, one of the things that I've really been focused on over these past years is we put on a lot of personas, we put on a lot of facades, we show people the best version of ourselves socially, but what we really need to be is the most authentic version of ourselves. So what I want to do is start inspiring more and more people to do that. And as you know, I've been on this journey of helping people understand and find their purpose, not just at work, but find purpose at work in their lives, right? Purpose not being this singular grandiose idea for their life, but more, we have multiple purposes in multiple moments. I've got a purpose as a husband, as a father, as a speaker, as an author, as a worship leader, I've got so many different purposes that I can step into. The question is, well, what's important now? Who do I need to be right now? You can't be all things to all people, but you could be all of you to the person right in front of you.
Right.
And when we show up as the most genuine person, our most authentic selves, that's when we step into the fullness of our purpose. So right now, my purpose is sitting here with my good friend Mark, having a great conversation and amplifying what you're doing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm very grateful and humbled to have you here. So I was a little nervous, to be honest, because I was like, this guy's all over the world. He's on these stages and he's all these people he's helping. But that helps me in my journey, and like I said, Davin was asking me, and in some episodes, you heard me explain some of this, some of my backdrop, my story that led me here, or my journey that's led me here. And I was sharing with Davin this morning a little snippet of it, but it really it came from my own inner darkness. I just hit the bottom of life a couple years ago. Nobody knew it. Nobody. On the external side of me, everyone's like, Mark's so happy, he's full of energy. And I'm just in the last year coming out of that. But I finally had to seek help. I go to therapy every Tuesday. Everyone that watches this show knows that because I say it all the time. I'll never stop going. It's helped me become a more humble, a calmer person, and it makes me more aware. So why I started this whole show, Imagine Better, was I imagined my own life being better. And I was like, imagine better. And I'm like, oh, that's a great concept. And And here we are, episode 9. I mean, we're just getting this thing started, or I am just getting this thing started, with a guest, right? So it's exciting for me, to see and have you on here with all the greatness and the like. You're a change agent for sure in life for people. I think.
That's very kind. I appreciate that. And I thank you for your vulnerability. I think there's so many people that are struggling. Honestly, if you look at, we could get all technical, but Gallup polls share that 85% of the people in the world are just not just disengaged at work, but disengaged in life.
Right.
They're walking around purposely, aimlessly, struggling. And again, we tend to show the world our best on social, but we hide the pieces of our life that we're struggling with. And one of the things that I'm challenging people to do more is to share their stories, because what you have walked through and what you are walking through, Mark, is when you're on the other side of it. And sometimes we're never fully on this other side of it. Sometimes it's a lifelong journey. But it's the continual pursuit of overcoming, of continuing to step forward, like our friend Jacob Brown talks about, fail forward. It's that continual pursuit of continuing to move forward that is sometimes the inspiration that other people need. And so they listen to what it is that you're doing, and they're like, wow, I'm in that place that Mark was in, right? Or maybe still is in. But he's moving forward, and so can I. And that's how we move forward together, is by not sharing our accolades and look at me and look at what I'm doing, but look at what I'm walking through. And you know what? You can walk through it too. You're not alone. And so thank you for sharing that message, because more important people need to hear that message today than look at what I've done or look at what I've look at what I'm walking through. And you can do it too.
No, I love that, and it's why I enjoy your content. I mean, this whole purpose, the word purpose, I think today, when you look across the web, it's loosely thrown out there. And so what I think what you have done with that word is give it more depth. And that depth allows people to embrace the message, embrace the stories they hear, I think, because that's what it does for me. And so when I watch you speak or I read some of your content, whatever it may be, I'm like, man, this guy gets it. And you do it so authentically well. So, because, this guy is a big-hearted man. I mean, you can tell that in your tone and believe it or not, the way you look at people, right? I think when someone looks you in the eyes, you could tell that they really do care, right? I think that. So, purpose is a word that's loosely thrown around, in my opinion, but the way that you've taken it to a new level, and with the Purpose Summit and just the name of your business, right? So I applaud you, right? I mean, you're giving me the tools to become a better soul, and you're giving my audience the tools and stuff. So let's kind of dive into a little bit of that. I want to know, why did you start this? Because you're also a musician, right? And a family man, a business owner, an author. When do you sleep?
I do sleep, believe it or not.
Standing up?
I do. I do. I know it is crazy. People kind of look back and they're like, how on earth, did you do all that you've done? And I think that about other people, right? I've got a good friend, Scott Miller, who's written, 7 books in the last 7 years, all of them bestsellers. He's the #1 podcast, host on leadership. And I asked him the same question, when do you sleep? So I feel like we're always comparing ourselves to others. That's actually one of the thieves of purpose that I just wrote about, is comparison. But it's funny that you're asking me that, because I'm thinking, I actually have more time to do more. And so it's interesting you say that. But you said something earlier. First of all, I want to thank you for your kind words earlier. But you said something about looking at each other and seeing someone and letting them know you care. And then you asked me, why did I start all this? It really goes back to a moment where someone saw me. Back in 2001, 23 years ago, I didn't know anything about purpose. I didn't really think that I had a purpose. I was a young 21-year-old, kid 23 years ago. Now I'm in my mid-40s. And I didn't really have any direction in life. I was just going through the motions. And Jim Sinegal, the CEO of Costco, came up to me while I was working at Costco. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Jim. What's your name?" And I said, "I'm Davin." And he said, "Davin, why do you work at Costco? What are your goals and dreams? And by working at Costco, are we going to help you fulfill those?"
Interesting.
And that question blew me away. Because first of all, the way that he looked at me and shook my hand the way that we just did made me feel seen. It made me feel like he genuinely meant that, genuinely cared. And I knew his name was Jim. He knew that.
Right.
And he knew my name was Davin because he was wearing a name badge that said Jim,
Just
and
like
I was
yours.
wearing a name badge that said Davin.
Right.
But he wanted to make that human connection. He wanted to make me feel seen and valued.
Right.
And it was the first time that I felt anyone had ever done that. And it left such an indelible mark on my life. And it made me start to think about, what is it that I do want to do? What are my goals and dreams? What's my purpose? I had all these questions. And so I embarked on that journey 23 years ago because someone made me feel that way.
Right.
And as I embarked on that journey, I realized that there were more and more and more people like who I was back then, who were wandering around aimlessly, who didn't have that sense of purpose, who didn't have that sense of direction. And there were very, very, very few leaders and organizations like Jim that were providing that ability to be seen, be heard, be valued, and to give them that awakening. And so I wanted to start to do that for other people. And so this whole journey really started 23 years ago in that moment.
Because of Jim.
Because of Jim.
See, that's powerful. In that right there just goes to show, like even you said he's a CEO or was a CEO?
He was, yeah. Now he's retired now. He's in his late 80s. But
yeah, 20-some years ago or something like that. So it's interesting. It reminds me of just a quick story. I'm not going to share the whole thing, but it reminded me when in 2007, I think it was, when I joined General Motors, I was a senior global web strategist there, and I traveled a lot, so I wasn't at the Renaissance as much. But one day, I remember this, and I'll never forget the day I walked downstairs to have lunch, and I just sat. There was a couple of us that were sitting there, and we decided to, just take a little break. Here comes Rick Wagner, the CEO of GM at that time, and I reported I think I was 6 layers underneath him in that organization at the time I was there. So he came in, he sat with us, and he just had an everyday guy conversation. Didn't talk about shop, nothing about General Motors. I thought, I was so impressed. Here is the CEO of General Motors coming down to have lunch and just sat next to us. And then just, "Hey, how you doing, Davin?" Nothing about work. It was just learning about who we were as humans.
And his ability in that moment to just, we started this by you asking, "Tell us about yourself. Who are you?" Whatever. And I don't need to shout out accolades or what I've done or whatever. And, I shared that, I'm challenging people to be more just an everyday person, be a human being. And I think the more that we can do that, the more that we're able to relate to each other, the more that we're able to seize those moments of purpose. And so the ability for Wagner to do that, to not be like, "Oh, I'm the CEO, and let's start talking shop, what do you guys do?" To put on this, to create this separation. Now, there's nothing wrong with celebrating when people achieve certain roles of leadership and to respect those things, and it exists for a purpose. Hierarchy exists for a purpose. But I think when we start to use that to create separation, it creates a problem. And so what Jim did is he closed that gap for me 23 years ago. And what Wagner did is he closed that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brilliant, though, when leaders, because, so many people look at, "Oh, he's the CEO of the company, he's untouchable, his closed door policy," because I think it's that perception of years ago when leadership, I think it was more intimidating for people to approach them when they're just humans. I think when leaders can humanize the culture of their places of work, they will get more productivity out of their people, they will have more respect, and their culture will thrive.
That's right.
I think.
The more human you can be as a leader, the more relatable you are as a leader. And so the most relational leaders that I've known are the most relatable leaders. And they're the ones that choose to not allow their position or their authority or their responsibility to create separation between them and those they lead. And this is actually a concept that I learned from Ken Blanchard years ago, many years ago. Ken Blanchard has written 62 books on leadership, probably the most prolific author on leadership that's out there. I was honored to have him write the foreword to my book. He's been a mentor of mine for 20 years, and he wrote a book called The Servant Leader a long time ago, and it was this concept of flipping the pyramid. Right, you think about the pyramid structure of an organization: CEO, C-suite, EVP level, VP level, director level, all the way down to front line. And his concept was flip the pyramid. The top exists to support and serve the bottom, rather than it being this trickle down effect. And it was mind blowing. I remember taking that and putting it on my office wall 20 years ago, and people thought it was nonsense. But the reality is, the most impactful and effective leaders that I have seen emulate that. One of my dear friends, Gary Ridge, and I have become, we've had him speak at the Purpose Summit 4 years in a row. He's become a dear friend. He is now the former CEO and chairman emeritus of WD-40 Company, right? One of the largest companies in the world. We've all got WD-40 in our homes, right? He spent 25 years as the CEO of WD-40. He is one of the most relatable and relational people that I've ever met. In 25 years as CEO of WD-40, he never laid off a single person in 25 years.
Wow.
Not because, now don't get me wrong, there's performance people that maybe you have to manage out, but he never laid off someone who he didn't have to lay off. They had some lean years, they had some down years, but he built such a fantastic, high-performing culture because of who he was, not because of what he did. Right. But because of who he was and who he still is.
I mean, and that's not the easiest thing to do, because it does start within. As you as a person, as him as a human being, looking inward, seeing who he really is, loving himself, right? And then that projects in so many ways outward, and allows you to have those tools and capabilities, I think, to lead people on, coaching your team, right? Giving them the belief that, hey, you too are amazing.
That's right.
You're not just, the line worker here, right? You're an integral part to why this organization is standing as strong as it is.
That's right.
And I think leaders who take that mindset and push it across the organization, I was almost ready to say down, but push it across their organization, they will see a significant lift in their culture, their revenue, their customer loyalty, I think, right, by looking at it.
Well, the other opportunity that we have is to also push belief up. Yes. And so what I mean by that is, if you think about it, so in the first book that I wrote, Finding Purpose at Work, there's a section
I own
on.
That book.
Thank you very much. There's a section on buying in early on people.
Yeah.
And I talked about, if you think about all of the people that we tend to aspire to be, the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the all the different people that are like, oh well, listen, at some point in time, all of these people were someone, a human being, without means or without, all they had was a goal or a dream. Yeah. And then what they did was they surrounded themselves with people that they can learn from. Yeah. And then they started to figure out problems that they can solve. And they figured out how to step into those problems that they can solve. And they seized moments of purpose. And then as a result of that, they became what they were. But then along that process, there's also mentorship and apprenticeship, where people see potential in others. Yeah. And maybe those people don't see the potential in themselves. And it takes someone speaking belief into them to help them see their own potential and their own capabilities for them to become who they can become. And if you look at some of the most inspiring people, not just the rich and famous people or people that seem untouchable, if you look at some of the most inspiring people who are out there, they all had some sort of story where they either came from nothing, or they had to overcome something, and it took someone stepping into their life to see that potential to drive belief in them. Right. And so the greatest opportunity that we have, not just as leaders of organizations, but as human beings, is to see the potential in others and to believe what's possible for them and to help them see what we see. And then to drive belief, not just across, but to drive belief up through those that we're leading.
I mean, think about that, right? You in everyday life, if we're at the grocery store, we're at a restaurant, wherever we are, you know, in there's people that are serving us, taking care of us, right? And that's their job. And if you sometimes, I mean, have you noticed when you go to a lot of places now, people don't look happy.
They don't.
And they look really, like, who knows what's going on in their life. So I make it a point, and I say, I turn around and I smile at them, you know, because I always, you know, I've been posting this whole smile campaign thing for a long time. And you never know who needs that. And then not only that, I've learned to go, so how's your day treating you so far? You know, and they look at me, and either a lot of times they'll say, oh, it's going great, thank you for asking. Most of the time, I don't know the percentage, it's high. I'll say 80% of the time. Most of the time, people, when I ask them that question, they go, thank you. You're the first person to ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sad, though.
Well, because we're so focused on what we need to get done that we miss opportunities on who we need to be. And that's the thing about purpose, is that we have an opportunity in every moment of every day to step into purpose.
Yes.
If we focus on being present in the moment and making a positive difference in the impact of those who are in front of us.
Yep.
So like right now, I could be focusing on where I need to go or what I need to get done after this podcast.
Right.
But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, I'm here with Mark and I'm present in the conversation.
Yeah.
And how do I leave Mark better than when I found him in the conversation?
I like that.
It's no different than if I was at the coffee shop where I stopped before I was right here.
Yeah.
There was a barista that served me a coffee. And I could have been thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get in here and get my coffee. I need to get the Troy. I have a pot. But instead, I was there and I saw the barista and I was able to have a conversation with them. And I'm thinking, how do I make sure that I leave this barista better than when I found them in the short 5 seconds that I'm going to be here? And if we treat each moment with, how do I step into the fullness of myself in this moment and focus on who I need to be rather than on where I need to be, who I need to be rather than what I need to get done, that's where purpose really shows itself.
Love that.
And you talked about the whole smile campaign. I talked about Jim earlier.
Yeah.
One of the things that Jim used to do is pretty funny. It's going to sound kind of corny, but I never forgot it. Sometimes the corniest things that are the things that leave such an indelible mark in our lives, and we're like, in the moment, we're like, well, that was cheesy. But then they stick with you. Is he used to do this thing where he'd walk by someone that wasn't smiling, and he would just stop, bend down in front of them, and say, oh, you dropped your smile.
No,
and then they would smile, and then they would do
that.
They would, like, it was so corny, but it caused them to smile. And so now one of the things that I've tried to do is when I walk across people who are not smiling, even if I don't know them, complete strangers, the barista, I will reach down and think, oh, excuse me one second, you dropped your smile. And then they'll laugh. Right? But even if that's all they remember from that interaction, you might be the only person who made them smile that day. You might literally be the only person that brought them that joy.
Yeah. And you're going to make them laugh a little.
And you're going to make them laugh a little bit.
So you got a twofer.
That's exactly right.
I love it. Hey, guys, if you have a comment or anything throughout this, drop us a comment. Share our post here on this episode. We're having a great conversation, and we're nowhere near done. But you guys, drop comments, share this with your friends and colleagues, and support the show and the message that we're trying to convey. You know, transforming every aspect of our lives is something that this show really stands behind, and that's my goal. Is how do we bring amazing people like you on, Davin, and friends, good colleagues. I mean, what do you get when because you have all these amazing people that walk across the stage at Purpose Summit. And do you ever just sit back and when you listen to these folks and just go, wow, are you just blown away by some of their stories? I can't remember the guy's name, but the amputee guy.
Nick Wojcik.
Nick. Unbelievable. I mean, I was in awe watching his, when I haven't been to the Purpose Summit yet, but so I watched, the content. Unbelievable story, and it blows me away. So I can only imagine you sitting there seeing this live, all these amazing humans.
I do. It's very much, again, not to sound kind of cheesy, but one of my favorite shows is The Greatest Showman. I love that show. We love it as a family. But what I love about that show, and I relate to it so much, is if you think about what Hugh Grant's character does. Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's character. Hugh, if you're listening to this, I apologize. You're both handsome.
I hope you're listening.
Both of you are fantastic. But if you think about what Hugh Jackman character does in that show, is in the beginning, he's pretty much an outcast.
Right.
And he finds other people who in the movie that they're portrayed as outcasts, but they've got unique gifts, talents, skill sets, and what he does is he creates a platform to share them, to show that they have purpose and meaning. That's the essence of what he creates.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then it starts to become about him and his ambitions, and they almost become a sideshow, literally, to the point where he's actually ashamed of them. And then it takes tragedy for him to realize that and to get back to his founding purpose of why he started it all. So there's such a great message in there.
That is.
And in many ways, this journey of the Purpose Summit has been that. And I've tried to make sure that I did not make the same mistake in the movie that the Hughes character portrays.
Yeah.
And not that any of the speakers at the summit are outcasts, but what I've tried to do is over the years, I've tried to find different inspiring stories of either whether it's leaders of companies who are actually leading organizations the way that we've talked about leading them in this organization, seeing people, driving belief within their organization, doing more things like Jim and our friend Gary have done in companies, or authors who write about that, or speakers who speak about that.
Yes.
Right? Not just TED Talk, inspirational talks, but really tangible, actionable, meaty, these are people who they have been through the fire, they've been refined, they're real, they're genuine, they're authentic, they're living it out. It's not just theoretical, it's practical, it's insightful, it's tangible.
Right.
So I've tried to bring these stories to life through the summit. And my favorite part is really, quite frankly, sitting back and watching it. In fact, I try not to do a keynote every year, and every year people ask me to do one. And I'm like, I don't want to do one because I don't want it to become about me. I don't want the summit to become about me. I want to amplify the voices of the people that are actually doing what my previous podcast was called, What Good Looks Like. This is what good looks like. Listen to what these people are doing. Follow what these people are doing. One of the things I've tried to say is choose to be the spotlight rather than to be in the spotlight.
Right.
So what I've tried to do is use the summit as a spotlight to shine the spotlight on those stories and try not to be in it as much. But the most rewarding part for me is hearing people like you say, oh my gosh, I've never heard of Nick Vujicic. But then I watch this guy who's born with no arms, no legs. Yeah. He's got 5 kids. He is one of the most inspiring people on the planet, takes every excuse away, because if this guy with no arms and no legs can have the belief in his abilities and his purpose to do things that those of us who've been blessed with arms and legs can do, what's stopping our belief of stepping into our potential and capability?
Confidence.
Fear. The thieves of purpose. Right?
Yes.
Whole other topic. I'm not going to get self-promotional on this. But that's the next book, The Thieves of Purpose. And there are these are 12 different things that rob us of our purpose and potential. Things like fear, things like excuses, things like doubt, right? Things like unbelief, right? So how do we overcome those things? And the way that we overcome those things is by surrounding us with people who can see in ourselves what sometimes we're too blind to see in ourselves because we're so busy looking at our circumstances. Yeah. And it blinds us from our purpose and potential.
That is so true. And honestly, that's another big reason why I do this show. I get to surround myself and build stronger relationships with my friends that come on here. You know, because we all get inundated with the day-to-day grind of our life. And sometimes it just, I don't reach out and just go, hey, Davin, you want to grab a coffee? And, I know we're all busy, though. So this gives me an opportunity to at least, I get to hang out with you for a half hour or so, I love that. So when's this new book coming out?
So that book will be out in February of 2025. Pre-order will come out in September. So you'll start to see marketing about it. You'll be able to order it in September. The book will be on bookshelves in
You heard it
February.
here, guys.
So
maybe you've talked about it elsewhere, but you heard it here.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm excited about it. It was a hard book to write, honestly, because, again, going back to this concept of how do we be our real, most raw, vulnerable selves and not put up this facade. A lot of times when you hear, oh, they wrote the book on that, it positions them as a subject matter expert. Yeah. And I appreciate that people consider me a subject matter expert on the concept of purpose, but the reality is all 12 of these thieves that I write about, they're not things that I have mastered or overcome. They're things that I, too, have dealt with and am going through. I struggle with comparison. I struggle with competition. I struggle with excuses. I struggle with fear, worry, doubt, unbelief, right? I've had thoughts of
You mean
quitting.
you're human?
I'm human, right? And so this book is written from that perspective of here are the things that we all struggle with that rob us of our purpose and potential. But then here's how you can confront them, and here's how you can overcome them so that they don't rob you of your purpose and potential. Nice. And so I'm just excited to invite other people on the journey with me.
I can't wait to read it. I have a second one in the works. It won't be out till late next year, but it takes a lot to put together a book and then to structure it. So you got to be pretty good at storytelling. So it's like I journal every day. So for me, it allows me to get my thoughts out, and then I go back through and I read, and then I say, that'd make a great section of my new book or something. And that's kind of how I wrote the first one. It was just a little bit every day, and eventually, voila, it's printed. Here it is, world. So it's, I love that. And you said something like excuses. So I'm thinking, well, another cool thing would be having a book called Excuse-itis, right? So we're not, a lot of people, because we do, I'm guilty of it, I'll procrastinate more now probably than I ever have. I don't know why. It's like, I could get to that later, but it's like mental wellness. It's like mindset changes. It's like, these are things that I feel, and I know all of these topics. I'm not an expert in any one of them, but it's like, I know, but it's like I think, myself, I can speak for myself, and if you guys relate, let me know, drop a comment, because I think that we go through life and it becomes so heavy as we get older and more complex because of all the moving parts, right? When you're younger, you don't have a lot of responsibility. In your 20s, you're having fun. Your 30s, you might be settling down now and getting married and starting a family. In your 40s, the reality of adulting, you just wham, smacks you across the back of the head. And then your 50s, you're going, damn, wow. It's either really good or it's really bad, or maybe there's that little blending of the two. But for me, life the last few years has been heavy, right? And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to focus, right? And I'm going to start looking at people in my network, you're one of them, and just watching you across the journey on social, because then it starts to help me reshape who I am. Right. So it's been awesome though to then here you are in my studio today. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and just in time before I ended up moving to Charlotte, so it just happened to be down the street. So I'm glad that we could do this in person. But what you just said there, I shared earlier that. Your story, what you're going through, what you're walking through, will someday be the inspiration for someone who's going through theirs. Yeah. And so we need to embrace those stories. And you said life has been heavy for you for the last. Life has been heavy, I think, for everyone since COVID, and probably even before COVID. I just don't think that we were aware of it. It was obviously much heavier during and since COVID. Yeah. I just think we're all more aware of the sense of struggle that we all have in our lives. And for a long time, we would just, in fact, I'm going to share this. I haven't shared this on any podcast. This is an exclusive. At the Purpose Summit this past year, I shared probably the realest, most raw, vulnerable talk I've ever given. And of course, always you read the comments after the summit. We get reviews, and there was lots of really great things said. Lots. I mean, just like 95% of the comments about the summit were positive. Nice. There was this one comment, though, that stuck with me that said, Davin's talk bothered me. What happened to fake it until you make it? I felt like it was too real, too raw, too vulnerable, and it was almost a cry for help. And I read that, and first I got, I didn't respond to it, but I was taken back by it. And I thought, you know what? That phrase, fake it till you make it, is probably one of the most destructive phrases that has ever been created. And I think there's way too many people out there that have lived by that motto, fake it till you make it. And it's honestly contributed to the mental illness and struggles and health and all the different things, the addictions, depressions, all of the things that have this grip on the heaviness of life is because so many people have been trying to fake it till they make it. So many people have been trying to keep up with the Joneses, when really what we just need to do is share who we are, what we're walking through, and be real. And I thought about it, it gave me such conviction to say, you know what? I'm actually going to lean into it more because I think what people need to hear is what's really going on in our lives. Because how can we step in and actually help each other? How can we step in and actually use the purpose that we're here for, that we've been given to help others, if we don't know what's going on in their lives? And then how can we make people feel seen, heard, and valued if we don't give them the invitation to do so because they feel they have to be someone else or put up a facade to fake it until they make it?
Yeah, I've always hated that expression. Always hated it. I will be honest that it would probably, I don't know, it's been a long time ago, a couple decades ago, because it's used a lot. I don't hear it as much nowadays. But I've used it in the past myself, you know, and it's just one of those that little set of words that have it will have such an impact later in life on people because it may in a negative way, like you were saying. And I think people that walk around making that excuse, because to me that's just an excuse why you're not really living to your potential. I think a lot of people are scared. You know, fear is a big thing, and I think also a lot of people, I'm guilty of this in the past and maybe to some degree now, you know, my personality normally is I'm a very type A, strong-minded, stubborn, impulsive kind of decision maker. I'm energetic, you know. I'm a extrovert, an extreme extrovert at times. Yeah. And the more excited I get, the more like pumped up and just... But that energy does carry throughout a room.
Absolutely.
And so what ends up happening, though, is once I come down off that rush, it's like drinking, you know, a big shot of double espresso or something and just boop, 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 600, it just ramps you up, right? That's right. But then when you come down in life, what's it do? It causes depression, right? That fake it till you make it will cause depression because you didn't try to make it. You faked it the whole way through. You're gonna start beating yourself up. Yeah. These are things I've done.
That's right.
You know, I've self-sabotaged so much in my life, myself, and it sucks. You know, and so when people use that phrase, they're never gonna find their purpose.
That's right.
They were never. How? Which leads me to my next question. I don't really have a lot of questions when I do this show. It's just mostly, it's not an interview. It's conversation. We're having coffee. You know, so when everyone goes through, your experience, I should say, what really eventually, how does one lead into their purpose? Is it, and I know we covered some of that already, but because everyone says, you know, I don't know what my purpose is. Yeah. Or, oh, my purpose is helping children, you know, the youth market, live a better life. I mean, okay, what is that? You know, I mean, so how?
Yeah, and I think it can be paralyzing to try and create one purpose for your life. I've shared this. Now, we can argue, you know, depending on what level of conversation we're having. Right. You know, at a spiritual level, we could argue that there's a grandiose purpose for our life. Yeah. But on a practical level, on an everyday life, I think a lot of people try to tie their purpose and their identity to their job, to their career, to what they do, rather than on the impact that they want to have. Ooh, yeah. And so when you think about purpose from an impact standpoint and not from a job standpoint, it changes your perspective on it. And so purpose is a great Venn diagram. I didn't come up with it. It's been around for years, the concept of ikigai. But it's this combination of what you're great at that the world needs, what you love to do, and what you can get paid to do. Right. And what I've constantly shared is I offer take the paid piece out for a second. Let's just focus on the other three and start with what is it that you're great at, that the world needs, and if you spent the rest of your life doing that, would you love it? And that's the starting point of your purpose. And then if you could figure out how to get paid to do that, then great. Then you can turn it into a career. Yeah. But it's not one thing. It's multiple things, right? Okay. So for me, I love to, Marcus Buckingham has a great work called Strength Finder, and he has different strengths that you're out there. And he says, based off of your strengths, you could be different things. And one of his assessments a long time ago said, you are a teacher and a stimulator. You love to educate people and you like to challenge how they think. And I do, which is great. And one of those, now I could say that my purpose is a teacher, my purpose is a stimulator, but that's not true.
Right.
What it really is the impact of doing those things. So I like to educate people because I want to see them use that. And your podcast is called Imagine Better. I love the name of that.
Thank you.
I want to imagine better for people's lives.
Yeah.
I want to see people live better lives. I want to see organizations lead better organizations, better cultures. I want to see better impact in the world. Yes. So I could actually sum up things and say, my purpose is really to help other people be better in life, in leadership, right, in their organizations. I could say that, but how I go about do that is different depending on the moment. Am I meant in this moment to teach? Am I meant in this moment to encourage? Am I meant in this moment to challenge? What am I supposed to do in this moment to help people be better? Now, if I pull that back a little bit more, I would say that our purpose universally is tied to leaving people better the moment we found them. So the question is, how do we do that? And for each person, it's different.
Not easy.
It's not easy. Right. But when you lean into the moment, purpose is found in the moment. Purpose can simply be as simple as you picking up and saying you dropped your smile to someone. And in that moment, even though you may never have another interaction for the rest of your life with that barista or whoever it may be, you may have just completely changed the trajectory of their day. You don't know what that was. There's a great book by Mitch Albom called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And I love this book, and the reason why I love that book, and it's not a religious work, it's a conceptual work, and he's a fantastic journalist, as many people know. But what I love about that book is this person dies, goes to heaven, and they meet 5 people in heaven. And these 5 people are people that they didn't know their name, they didn't have a relationship with in life, but they were 5 people that this person, while they were alive, briefly impacted in a short period of time because they stepped into the purpose of that moment, and it changed the entire trajectory of these 5 people's lives. And so what this person gets to see in heaven is how that short interaction actually changed and shaped the entire life of these 5 people.
That's powerful.
And it's a very powerful book because we walk by those moments every single day. So if we just focus on how we can step into those moments of purpose, on focusing on who we need to be in the moment, purpose reveals itself. Rather than us trying to define it, rather than us trying to limit it or bring it to a single statement, it really is just as simple as stepping into the moment and being the fullness of who we are to the people who are in front of us in each of those moments.
That is awesome. Well, I know we got to wrap up here because Davin has to get out. You guys, episode 9, my friend. Thank you for doing this with me, man.
Thank you. My pleasure.
You're awesome. You guys follow us on YouTube at Imagine Better Show and share our content. Crush that notification button so you don't miss other amazing, awesome episodes as we continue to move this thing forward. Imagine Better, guys. Have a great day. And again, thanks for all your support and love. And there we have it.